So I think we can all agree at this point that while the first look Nintendo Switch 2 hardware trailer was very exciting to see go live, January 16th has come and gone, the dust has kind of settled for that trailer, and now many people, including myself, are more interested in hearing about what type of games we should be able to expect for Nintendo's new console hardware around the launch window of this console. Doesn't mean everything has to be there day one, but we want to know kind of the pipeline of what to expect, and we've talked at length about how this console seems to be geared up and ready to go for a ton of third-party support this time. We know we're going to get a bunch of first-party announcements from a software perspective at that April 2nd date, but interestingly, while we've covered and name-dropped some reporters like Jason Schreier kind of sharing the idea about the reason that Nintendo dropped the first look hardware trailer the way they did with just a quick look at the console hardware, had to do with third-party devs being able to promote their games ahead of time for Nintendo's next-gen platform. But then we had that Xbox Developer Direct, and we didn't see any Switch 2 logos outright included in any of the games that were featured there, and it now seems we might know the answer to why that is, in addition to some bigger news, which is really the headline more of this video, and that's that we have that much more confirmation that Microsoft and team over at Xbox are going to be showing up in a big way for this hardware with Nintendo, because again, we are not in a situation where Nintendo has to prove themselves like they did in the Wii U generation to essentially show that they could come back and be a mainstream force in the gaming industry. They are in that position of power now, and we know that they're going to be delivering a much more graphically capable console this time around, and we have some exact quotes from Phil Spencer himself confirming full support for Nintendo Switch 2, in addition to a totally separate source potentially revealing the real reason why we might not see many third-party AAA pieces of software promoted until Nintendo actually gives the okay on that stuff. And we probably know the date already that that's going to be taking place, but we're going to get on the same page with all of this info. Before we do, make sure you like, subscribe, and turn on your bell notification to join Sunbro Nation if you're new here. And I want to first kick off this conversation by hopping over to VGC, where they do have an exact write-up with what Phil Spencer was quoted saying in terms of their support for Switch 2, and then we have to tie into which games that we will likely see ported to Switch 2 due to prior leaks, and also when do the floodgates truly open in terms of knowing what kind of first and third party software we should be able to expect to see officially announced for Nintendo's next gen piece of hardware. But you can first see Phil Spencer confirms Xbox will support Switch 2. I congratulated Nintendo's president. Microsoft head of gaming is looking forward to supporting Nintendo with games. Nintendo finally announced the new Switch earlier this month, and although no games have been officially announced for the platform, Xbox's team are said to be prepping multiple releases, including Diablo 4, Halo the Master Chief Collection, and Microsoft Flight Simulator. Microsoft's newly acquired Activision has also committed to releasing Call of Duty games on Switch 2 via its agreement with the FTC. Speaking in a new interview with Gamertag Radio published on Friday, Spencer confirmed Xbox would be supporting the platform and said he'd exchanged messages with Nintendo's president following the Switch 2's reveal. I was exchanging emails with Furukawa-san, the CEO of Nintendo. I gave him a big congrats and said my old eyes appreciate the larger screen, he said. Nintendo, their innovation and what they mean to the industry, I just always applaud the moves they make. They did a little flash video, and I know we'll be getting more detail over time. I'm really looking forward to supporting them with the games that we have, and I think they're just a really important part of this industry. He added, it's hard with what's publicly out there right now for everyone to get their heads around it, but who would ever bet against the success of that team? They are masterful in what they do. Switch is a massive success, and I think Switch 2 will be as well. Xbox first announced in February 2024 plans to bring a wave of games to PlayStation and Nintendo Switch in what appeared to be a significant change of strategy, starting with Pentiment, Hi-Fi Rush, Sea of Thieves, and Grounded. Later, Microsoft announced Doom: The Dark Ages for Xbox Series X, S, PC, and PS5, and confirmed that a PS5 version of its Indiana Jones game will be released later this year. The Outer Worlds 2 is also planned for PS5. Earlier this week, Xbox announced it will be publishing a new Ninja Gaiden game, which will also be released for PS5 later this year. Okay, so those comments are obviously exciting and all, and it sounds like a lot of the same messaging that we've actually heard from Microsoft at this point, where everything's an Xbox to them now, and they really just want to get their games out there in front of as many gamers as possible. But you might have a question mark in your head about why have we not seen any kind of official Microsoft promotion for their content content coming to Nintendo Switch 2 now that we know the official hardware has been revealed. And that's where a known leaker that we have talked about actually revealing a number of the games that are slated to come to Switch 2. Some very exciting titles in that list, like Elden Ring, like Halo the Master Chief Collection, many others among that, but you can see this post over on Our Gaming Leaks and Rumors, which might actually answer that exact question, where user Ecstasis says Doom Dark Ages is coming to Switch 2. The only reason why Xbox hasn't revealed it yet, it's because Nintendo is not letting third-party developers reveal information until Nintendo greenlights it. The game, which is fully in development for the next generation machine, is being deliberately withheld. Nintendo has not given the green light to all of its partners to present their titles, especially those that would be exclusive to the Switch 2. Why this extreme secrecy? Because it seems that any game exclusive to the Switch 2 requires special permission from Nintendo before it can be announced. This would be a strategy to control the hype and prevent leaks until the company decides to reveal more official technical information about its new console. So that kind of thought process is actually different than that of what we've talked about in the past, because we saw a post from Jason Schreier specifically stating that Nintendo's probably announcing their hardware to allow third parties to start talking about their Nintendo Switch 2 content, but Nintendo may, in true Nintendo fashion, want to control the messaging just a little bit more than that, because you do have to realize we only got to look so far at one piece of software for Nintendo Switch 2 from Nintendo themselves, and that's a quick look at the next Mario Kart. Nintendo has not gone into the full details of this console yet and really revealed to us what the graphical capabilities look like from an official standpoint. Sure, we have plenty of shipping information and spec leaks and even some power profile leaks to discuss, and we are expecting it to land somewhere in the realm of a Series S/PS4 Pro when you factor in all of the up-res tools that they're going to have with DLSS and stuff like that when in docked play, and you know, in terms of more handheld performance, that in line with something of a PS4 base console more or less. But I do tend to buy this information from Ecstasis. I actually think that Doom the Dark Ages is a perfect fit for Nintendo Switch 2. I mean, we had the last Doom on Nintendo Switch playable, one of those really cool visual showpieces, almost impossible port, quote unquote, type of talk going around with it online, and I think that this is going to be no exception to that, but I'm assuming that Nintendo wants to save all of those wow moments for their own direct presentation, which will be happening on April 2nd. And that's when I think all the third parties, from a big perspective, we've had those smaller third parties start to promote their games for the Switch 2, and we've even seen some of them make updated posts like Ruffy in the Riverside saying, yeah, it's coming to Switch 2, and that little Switches comment that they were teasing at before was indeed a tease that they were going to bring their smaller project to Nintendo's next-gen hardware. But whenever you talk about a partner like Microsoft, Ubisoft, EA, and Take-Two, and all of these other massive publishers, you might actually not see any communication from an official standpoint for those games show up until Nintendo's ready to dive into the deep end of showing us what the console hardware is powerful enough for. And I think a lot of those games are just going to show up at the April 2nd presentation. Both the Ninja Gaiden 2 remake and the Ninja Gaiden 4 announcement at the Developer Direct were really cool things for me to see, and I think that that software is fully on the table here. Microsoft is currently developing and publishing a Perfect Dark game. I would love to see that make it to Nintendo Switch 2 day and date, and it may already have a version in the works. Phil Spencer, in the same interview that we were quoting, actually was specifically asked about a game like Starfield, and he's talking about how keeping a game like that as a platform exclusive is just not part of their plans, and they're not really going to have this mindset of lock it down to Xbox, but rather put it out on any competitor hardware that can run the game and get more people playing Microsoft games, and they of course get their revenue kickbacks and ultimately sell the games that they want to sell by going to where the audience of gamers is at. And I think we're going to see them follow through with that. And that game that was at the Developer Direct from Xbox as well, Claire Obscure Expedition 33, that's a multi-platform game, but we didn't see any kind of promotion for Nintendo Switch 2, but it's another one that I think would be in that conversation. But third-party devs, whether they want to or not, are playing by Nintendo's rules right now and not promoting it for that console if Nintendo hasn't greenlit it for them. And so I do believe that's what's going on here. Side note, Expedition 33, I'm not a huge turn-based RPG player, but that one has my interest peaked. Like literally the mix of the live action and the visuals with that more classical menu system turn-based RPG mechanic. I'm sold on it. Looks like it has a great story, everything else to offer. But we are now at a point in time where all of these big, more visual showpiece games for Nintendo are on the table, and not really a stretch to imagine coming to the platform. Not to mention some separate headlines going around that had Phil Spencer confirming that Series S is going to continue to get all of the support for Xbox's first-party games lineup in the Series X generation, meaning they're not going to cut support or ever stop asking developers to get a Series version playable on both the X and S. That's not going away as a requirement, and I think that also really puts Microsoft in the position where all of their content will be that much easier to port to Nintendo's next-gen hardware, especially with modern tools like DLSS packed in there, and they already have something that's targeting running on more similar hardware, albeit with less RAM than what we are expecting in the Nintendo Switch 2. So we might have to wait until April 2nd to get a ton of the blowout information for exactly officially what games are slated to come to Nintendo Switch 2, but it seems like Microsoft's going to be there in full support, and I am expecting a lot of Microsoft games, and even other names like Nate the Hate talking about that Microsoft has a ton of support planned, and I think that that's going to indeed be the case for Switch 2, and this is just reassuring comments from Spencer himself that they're going to support the hardware. It's probably going to be a lot of releases over the first 12 months of this console being out there, and I'm all here for it. And it also makes me just that much more impatient to see that April 2nd date finally hit, but we don't have to wait long. So let me know in the comments down below what, if any, games from Microsoft or other third parties you are most excited to see make it to Nintendo Switch 2. Which ones do you think are indeed a lock to come over, and which ones do you think might be ones you'd like to see but will maybe have a little bit more complications around them ultimately seeing a release on Nintendo's next-gen hardware? But make sure you share all your thoughts and feelings in the comments down below before you leave, regardless if we agree or disagree. Also, make sure you like, subscribe, turn your notification bell. And with that, I've been Sunbro, you've been Nation. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.